a really angry person. I get frustrated by a lot of things and I get angry at a lot of things. This year, instead of just being angry and like rah, 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 be like, oh, the food is so expensive. If I don't run, someone else is gonna run. And do I trust someone else? Not really. What exactly does SRC do to have so much funding? I think SRC president is overpaid. So my name is Annika Wang. So my legal name is Wang. That's my Chinese name. My preferred pronoun is she, they. Yeah. I'm currently doing a Bachelor of Law and a Bachelor of Science. I'm in my third year, and my major is mathematics for the science degree. Yeah. Annika is the answer. Yeah. My campaign manager is Casper Nicholson, but I'm mainly doing it by myself. He's just helping out. Yeah. My campaign color is purple. Yeah. I know the name of it. It's called Heather color, but we don't know the code. But I can send you afterwards. Yeah. I'm independent. Yeah. No, because I'm not Australian citizen. Yeah. So I think my politics, first of all, I consider myself as socially relatively more progressive. And I think secondarily, because I'm not in any political party, I think my politics specifically for USU is focused more on student centric and focused more on students' life. And I'm pretty open minded and willing to hear different political perspectives from people. Yeah. I think in principle, incorporation is a good thing because I'm personally a law student. I understand if USU is still not incorporated, a lot of board directors and every USU member is personally liable for any potential damages. And if an external party sue the USU, we might get into some troubles. And incorporation can offer legal protection for USU. And I think secondarily, incorporation is good because incorporation give you the legal personality, and as a separate legal entity, you're able to enter into contracts and enter into more deals. And I think these are largely beneficial for the students overall. Yeah. I think first E, which is I think the most of the time I dedicated in my extracurricular activities will be senior university law student societies. So I'm currently the international students officer on SALS, and when I was in first year, I was the first year cohort representative of SALS on campus committee. And besides that, I was also under the international students committee. And in second years, I was under competitions committee. I was the judging coordinator, so I was basically responsible for like a lot of admin stuff and communicating and soliciting who was responsible for judging lots of internal competitions. I think that's the first like club and society engagement I have on campus. And second, I am in the USU Debating Society. I was the development officer from 2024, but I resigned before the election. And in 2023 to 2024, I was the school officer on debates committee. And I've also personally participated in a lot of inter-varsity competitions. So I went to Easters last year, and I was the semi-finalist of the national inter-varsity competition. And I also went to women and gender minority competition last year, and I was the quarterfinalist. And I also represented the University of Sydney to Panama World University Debating Championship, and I broke as an adjudicator, and I also I participated in Masters Final. It's like a joke competition with the former director of debate, Sam Trotter. So we reached the grand finalists, which was pretty good. And I think next one is I am also in the Chinese Debating Society, but I'm not on any executive position, and I wasn't like hugely involved. And besides that, I'm also kind of involved in Chocolate Society and Chopstick Society, and I also play some tennis, but I wouldn't say that I'm actively engaged in the club and society aspects. Yeah.
Okay, great. Sounds like you're super involved, especially in debating.
So first of all, I think I will start with identifying the current problems of the user app because I think it's more straightforward and more specific. So I think the current problem of the user app is that I think first of all there's a very huge time lag when you open the app and when you're trying to like pull up the code to get stick end or etc. So I think that's actually not that hard to do and not that financially impossible. I've spoken to several former board directors and current board directors. They are currently engaging in some technology companies to increase the efficiency of responding. And I think further logistics could be a prioritization of the board going forward, because I think that's something that sometimes is under prioritized and ignored in a lot of board elections or like board campaign. Because a lot of people talk about we want to decrease food prices, but another problem I think a lot of people don't have, especially with the changes this year, is that you have to scan the code before you get a decreased price for the member price, because the board want to separate the amount of price you charge to like external stakeholders like tourists and USU member. But I think a lot of students are not aware of it, or even if they're aware of it, it's very difficult to put it up and it takes a lot of time to log in. So I think by decreasing the amount of redundancy you have when using the app, you can actually like save money, because a lot of people are just like, oh, I have to go to class in a minute, I just can't sign in or stuff like that. So I think the way to do that is to engage with more IT tech companies, and I think USU is currently already in the process of doing so. And I think cooperation with like Faculty of Science and Faculty of Computer Science will also be logistically quite easy. And I also do think it's a policy that doesn't have a lot of like financial costs, and the financial costs can be limited if this is only graduate maintenance. And I think the second way of improving user experience is that, technically speaking, we have the app. So it takes a lot of money to maintain the app, and it takes a lot of money to like improve the logistics. But I don't think the app is actually fully utilized to its fullest potentials. I also have another policy talking about how club and societies can increase the kind of advertisement opportunities. So I'm thinking of, is there a possibility of introducing another section that includes club and society events on the USU app, because I don't think that was currently included in the USU app. Currently, the USU app is just like food outlets and coupons or etc. So I think adding the club and society aspects into the USU app from like a digital and mobile perspective will be something that is going to be, I think, mutually beneficial for club and societies, because they can better advertise their events, so they can get more like, if this is a ticketed event, the club can get more money because the club can get more revenue throughout like ticketing the events, besides only getting grants from the USU. So I think that's something we will definitely want to look forward to, and I think that's not something that the previous board directors spent a lot of emphasis on, but because I've already communicated to them and I've like asked them about how possible it is and how expensive it is, they say they're currently engaging with the tech team to try to improve the user experience. So I think that's something that is relatively quite feasible, but obviously the specific like mathematics and specific budget will still be subject to further discussion when I'm on the board, because I want to ask about more, but they're like, oh, that's kind of confidential. Yeah, okay. I personally think it is not incredibly accessible. Obviously, I think USU have done a lot of work to improve that, and I think the works of 86s is already something that's really good, but I personally don't think it's accessible. I think firstly is that if you try to log in, oftentimes it just like log you out multiple times. I don't know if it's just my technology problems, my phone's problem. And I think second of all, if you change devices, sometimes like if you log in into an old device, you have to be forwarded into another link, and then you log back to your new device. And I think that makes it quite inaccessible, because sometimes then you have to like call the tech team, and some people have issues of like, I don't really want to call the tech team, it's kind of a hassle, and then I feel like they will just get disengaged. So I think that's the first thing that is inaccessible, and I think that's what I previously talked about improving the technology accessibility, better maintenance, and literally just like the response rate should be faster. Second of all, I don't think it's very accessible in a I will talk about disability later, but I feel like for language accessibility, it's not very, very accessible to people with like ESL or people have a second language. But I think that is harder to improve. So probably if I have the honor to be elected, that will be deprioritized, and that will be something that we look forward to in my like second year or tenure, or going forward when we have new board director, because a lot of my policies also speak to international students. But I do believe that how the app is designed is kind of unfamiliar to international students, so it's really, really hard to navigate. But I think if there can be, for example, USU menu, like you can have like you can have a digital PDF menu, or you can have a physical copy of menu that's translated into Mandarin to teach you how to use the USU app exactly. That would be better than completely have a new system of language for the USU. So I think that's a not costly solution that can be done very effectively in order to increase accessibility to like international students or people with other like languages. And I think finally, going back to disability, obviously, I think it is not accessible for people who have people who are blind and people who sometimes have disability with like using digital technology. So I think there are several ways you can improve the app. So first of all, I think it's really difficult to improve it if you have I don't know the English word of it. It's like visual impairment. I don't know if that's the yeah. So I think if you have visual impairment, that would be something very difficult for you because you just can't pull up the code. And I think that's such a really horrible thing because it means that right now you can't get like the membership price, especially if the outlets is like that. So I think USU should actively engage with people who are registered with student disability services to reach out to them to say, hey, like you can bring this pass or we can give you a physical card in order to replace the digital card of USU membership in order to make sure that with people with like blindness, people with like listening impairment or people with other kind of physical disability don't have to use the technological app, but it's you can have a physical card to be scanned. And I think that's very easy to do. And I think USU just need to take a more proactive stance and proactive step into improving the accessibility of a lot of digital technology. So I think because I'm personally a part of Sydney University Law Society, but because even the SOS is currently deregistered right now, we don't have to go through all the regulations. But because I personally have experiences with Chinese Law Student Society and Southeastern Asian Law Student Society. So I think the specific regulations you have right now, I'm not saying that necessarily we're going to completely remove that because I do believe regulations exist for a reason and oftentimes they're for safety compliance and for protocols or etc. They're here to guarantee that the events can be run smoothly and can be run in a very safe manner. But the problem right now is that the risk assessment form has two problems. First of all, a lot of society, especially new society, especially at the beginning of the year when they have a new group of executive, they're unsure about how to fill it out correctly and they're unsure about how to access it and where to access it and they're unclear about how to like fill them out specifically. So I think first of all, if we have better clarification of what exactly the risk assessment form can be filled in, I think that's something that is beneficial. And I think second of all is a lot of society don't know that they have to fill in risk assessment form 14 days prior to the event occurs. So what happens is that they will like have everything planned, they have all the venue booked, and then realize I didn't fill in the risk assessment form and other forms that USU needs materials about. So I think better clarification or smooth communication to the club will significantly solve the problem. And I think the third problem, which is kind of relevant to RITE, but I think I'm not going to cut specific regulation, but what I think could be improved is that currently the correspondence is a little bit ineffective. So if there can be increased staff member or we categorize clubs into like different categories, for example, like faculty clubs, sports clubs, like entertainment clubs and cultural clubs, and each are dedicated to a specific contacting person that is consistent. I think that will be more helpful for club and society to ask questions and have inquiries. Yeah. So I think the USU board firstly is relatively not that well known compared to the amount of jurisdiction, the amount of power they can exercise on the community. So I think it's very important to make sure that the students can also have an actual say in USU, but specifically regarding to what USU do to the students, I think USU should be vocal about what students exactly want in their societies. And I think second of all, USU should also be a supportive community and the USU board directors should be able to offer the kind of support that clubs and societies directly want. And I think more specifically, USU is obviously managing the budget of SAF fees and membership fees. And secondarily, I think they actually have a very personal and intimate relationships with every single student because it goes hand in hand is because if you're eating on campus, what kind of food do you choose is decided by USU. If you want to step out of your classroom besides your tutorials and actively get engaged into student society and actively get engaged into events, USU has a primary role into deciding what kind of events is going to be run and how much the event is going to cost. So I think USU is very important in deciding what your daily life looks like, but I think I've seen a decline importance and decline interaction between students and USU after COVID and after like the 2010s and earlier ages. So I think, firstly, I think the USU board director needs to prioritize students' interests and prioritize the smooth facilitation of USU before their personal politics. Because I think every year during election, there are some policies that are going to be thrown around that every single person agree. So I think in board meeting and board directors, what should I do to prioritize is to prioritize the thing that everyone agrees on first, and then move on to the fractional stuff, and then move on to the stuff that is being disagreed upon. And I personally think that USU doesn't necessarily have to be very political because we already have SRC in place that is the political part of the USU. So not USU, of the university, and I think students' voices are being efficiently represented. But I think USU in and of itself, sometimes when it's intertwined with politics, I think it gets a lot of filibusters and it gets unproductive. So I think that's my personal stand of USU. And I think each board director should be able to separate their personal politics and personal interests and the USU overall visions. However, I do believe that if there are a lot of political issues that it can receive overwhelming majority support from students. For example, probably all the students want concessionary Opal cards, even though it's a political issue from a broader society. But probably that's a thing that's good for the majority of the student body. And probably freedom of speech is a political issue in Congress or Parliament. But I think that's something that universities should be able to advocate and should be able to promote. And I think there are a lot of political issues that are largely political in the society, but relatively has already received agreement or can represent overwhelming majority of the students' body. I think the USU should also be able to take stance on these issues and able to promote them as much as possible. But I don't think USU should prioritize politics over student body and affordability of food on campus. So I think firstly, I'm largely in support of paying the members of V Team for USU because they're currently unpaid. But I think secondarily, a lot of people are still willing to participate with it, even if it's a volunteering program. So I think for the V Team, I think it depends on what currently the V Team member wants. So if they are only doing it for volunteering experiences, and they want specifically something that it's called volunteer on their CV, or they just want to experience it without being paid or something, that's okay. Because this is probably my unique perspective because I'm an international student and I have hourly cap. So that is to say I'm only allowed to work 24 hours a week. I probably already work at a law firm for 24 hours a week. But I still want my volunteer experiences. But if it's paid, it gets into my hours. Therefore, that means that I can't volunteer in the team. So I think for some people, actually not being paid and having that as a volunteering experiences in your experience and in your overall life experience is something that's valuable. So I think it largely goes into what exactly does the V Team currently want. Is the V Team thinking that, we should be paid and we have to not be paid just because the V Team is only hiring us for volunteering purposes, or they're we don't really care about whether or not we are paid, we just really love this, we just really want this experience. So I think my approach on here is that because I'm unsure about what exactly are their interests and their positions right now, so I would love to, and I'm open for the possibility of them being paid because I personally think that's overall a better situation. But regarding what their position is, and I think taking into the consideration of the budgetary restraints of USU, I think there needs to be a holistic discussion being made by board. But I do believe this is an issue that is not being currently brought up by the board, and that's something that the board should pay more attention to. I think a more practical approach I would take if I have the honor to be elected is to firstly conduct a survey on the V Team members, and then second of all, to just engage with the finance team and treasury and the secretary of USU to make a more holistically informed decision. So, can I just only pick one?
Preferably, yeah.
No, okay.
Although
I need to think a little bit because.
I can give you an easier question. Which USU service do you engage with most frequently?
I think USU food outlets. Yeah.
Okay.
I think. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So I think the best one is Food Hub. I think Food Hub significantly improved their quality of services. It's firstly more organized because when I was in first year, because I live in Darlington House, which is a accommodation facility across the Sydney University Regiment, so I was mainly relying on Food Hub in my first year. In my first year, I think Food Hub was firstly long queues, second of all, quite disorganized, and I think third of all, the food quality was pretty bad. But I think in 2023 and 2024, there is a significant improvement. But first of all, you have the human takes ticket. So you actually control the number of people you're getting in. So you know how much food you're providing. And I think second of all, because they get survey from like, what do you want more to improve in the future? I think that's really good. And I think specifically in Food Hub, they get like the instant food offer. So previously, they just only have like food and vegetables. But then they have like the instant eat pasta or like stuff in the fridge and everyone can take one. So sometimes I just go there for lunch because it's free. Yeah. So I think that's a very good achievement. And I think that was something in everyone's election promises and it was not carried forward. So I think that was pretty like idealistic and it was pretty good. But the other thing is like they talk about affordability of food on campus, but I don't think they did really good in that. But yeah. This is also hard because I just think they're all pretty important. But if I have to choose, I just sound like a foodie right now. But if I have to choose, I still think it's food because, to be honest, the majority of the students are not that engaged and not that active. They just come here, they sit in their tutorial, they grab a coffee at Fisher Cafe or they grab a coffee at like Courtyard and they just leave and they just go. So I would still say that it's like Manning's, Herman's, like Courtyard and Laneway Cafe. I still think it's food outlets. And I think that's why everyone like try to focus that on their policy. Yeah. But I think club and societies, like personally, so that was like more I think overall like overwhelming students' body and the majority of the students, I think the most important is USU food outlet. But for me personally, I think it's club and society funding because I think club and society funding really determines who is participating in the activities and how well can you participate in the activity. Because I think I'm personally very fortunate because I think debating society gets a lot of funding from USU, and I think it also has shown in the tangible result and achievement from how people like do in big competitions and they get to participate in this competition without the worries of not being able to afford like flights and registration fee. So I think that's for me personally, I think the most important service that USU was able to offer for me throughout the past 3 years. I think there are efforts, and for example, there's an Eastern Avenue food truck that served the burgers that I think recently opened. So that was like $12.6, and I think that's cheaper than a lot of other options and like burgers, blah blah blah. But there is not a direct comparison because I don't think that was something that like always exists, and I think that food truck was like a pretty good option. And I think secondarily, obviously there are difficulty of decreasing food prices. So probably relatively you decrease compared to inflation, but I haven't done the math. I don't know, did you actually relatively decrease? Because my wage is not increasing. I got paid the same amount of money from when I was in first year and right now, but like the food price did, I don't think it increased a lot, but it definitely didn't like significantly drop because I didn't notice a drop and the coffee is still expensive. And to be honest, I think it's kind of unfair for me because I'm lactose intolerant and all flat white is so much more expensive than a regular flat white. It's like 5 cents and I'm just like, why is it so much more expensive? Like I get it, but I just don't think milk is that much more expensive to like lactose intolerant. But I feel like this is not a huge disability, so I'm like I'm not gonna fuss about it. I'm not gonna like complain about it, but I just do want to look into the actual finance. But I know that's confidential to figure out why is like oat milk and almond milk so much more expensive than regular flat white? Like why is my dietary requirements being so hard to comply? But sorry, I just rambling right now. But speaking back to decreasing food prices, I think the problem is that people have a wrong mentality. I think people's mentality is always like because I read an only article. I think it's about the board meeting from a month ago or 2 months ago. It's just basically because Bryson and Ben was saying how like we can't decrease the price because eggs are expensive, but it's just kind of like at that time it was not that expensive yet, and it's like that's not like a very justifiable like explanation. So and also I think something that only pointed out in that article was very correct is that I also is in Georgia Jan's interview or just like last year's board interview is that people just always assume that it's so easy to just decrease the price and USU is secretively using some money to some dodgy businesses and we can just magically and miraculously decrease the price of food. But I think the actual thing is that they probably try their best. Probably it's not that some money is being used in like an unjustifiable way, and probably there's no way you can solve it. So I think instead of always thinking about how can we decrease the price, is to think about how you can make the pie bigger. This might sound very finance bro, but what I'm essentially trying to say is that I think USU, a lot of venue is not as effective and as productive as they could be. That is to say, they probably are in a very good geographical proximity into university, which means that they have a lot of potential to make more money overall. But making more money doesn't mean that you have to increase the food price. It means that you can have creative business models, and you can open up for more souvenir stalls around quad when there are a lot of tourists visiting, because I think there's a huge commercial potential of like the tourists coming to like use it to visit at like in specific peak tourist era, and then they just grab food outside of campus while they could like grab food within the campus. And I think there are more potential opportunities that USU can unlock. And I think secondarily you can do more package deal. It's like food and drinks together, it's like a cheaper price or something like that. I think there is a limited amount of that kind of package deal being offered on campus right now. But I think if we work around the math together, because I'm not a finance person, but there is a reason why all the retailers are doing that. So I think there's a way you can make the package deal overall become quite profitable, because you're incentivizing people to buy more stuff, but not increasing the price. So I think probably that's a better way to work around like how it is very, very difficult to just decrease the price, because I think everybody promises it, but there's no creativity around it. Obviously, I don't know what the board director has tried. Also, I mentioned in my policy another small thing is that besides USU outlets and besides just focusing on campus, people go to Newtown a lot and people go to Glebe and like Chippendale. I think there is possibility of like expanding collaboration with these kind of off-campus outlets, because I just honestly don't think that's going to be, firstly, incredibly difficult and incredibly time costly, and second of all, I think they're pretty willing to engage with it. For example, when I'm like running the debating society, like the Flood Hotel is very happy to cooperate with you and give you like free food and stuff if you bring students into their pub and get stuff. And I think similar business model can apply to a lot of outlets and a lot of like small retail in Newtown, etc. Also, people like supporting small businesses, so it's like probably Tyler own, you can get like a student $1 discount or something. So they will like have a lot of more turnout during like, for example, it could be like happy hour for them. It's like 2 to 4. You can get like a cheaper student price if you're a USU member. So that will also increase USU member engagement. Like more people are more likely to sign up. Or that could be included as a membership premium in like the reward package. So more people want to sign up for reward, and then you get more money from like rewards membership. So and then overall in the end you can reduce the price because you increase revenue by like other area instead of increasing the price. So I think that's a more feasible and possible way of like decreasing food price. The greatest weakness or limitation of the USU. I think currently right now is firstly it's not incorporated. I think you like it's very scary for me that I am personally liable for stuff. But just saying that in principle I support incorporation, but whether or not incorporation is done is still up to discussion. I just want to clarify that because I don't necessarily support how like incorporation done is in a specific way. I think incorporation will be good if it's done in a specific way with more like constitutional protections to the workers to ensure that they're paid more safely, etc. So I think not incorporated right now is a limitation, and I think the second limitation is, I think it's just budget limitation. To be honest, I think it's just budget limitation. Is that because we get money from SSAF, and we get money from membership, and then we get money from like the outlets or etc. So I think that's the second limitation. I think the third limitation is that there are a lot of like the over relationship with the university is kind of tricky because like negotiation is difficult to deal with, and sometimes we want to do a lot of stuff, but we need like university approval. So I think that's also tricky. Sorry, you asked like one greatest limitation, and then you just like listed 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Aside from the incorporation, because that's been a pretty popular answer.
Yeah.
So mainly budget limitations and the close relationship with the uni.
Yeah. So I think USU has a tricky relationship with the uni, but this is just from the words of board directors. And I think because the board director is always like, oh my god, like negotiation is so hard with the uni. So I'm really interested in what exactly are the difficulties with working with the uni, and curious as to what's the uni stance on USU. Like, does uni want USU? And like just in general, I think that's a very tricky and ambiguous area, and I think that's probably potentially a limitation of the USU. And from that, it comes the budget issue, because then the university have to like divide their budget from like so many different groups. Yeah, like supra and like the sports and fitness and stuff. So I think it's just a tricky relationship with uni and the funding. Yeah. So, oh, okay. I really want to be really honest, but this is going public. I think USU could potentially get a little bit more of self funding, because I think probably it's also because my limited knowledge of what other like student organizations, student outlet is able to do, and because my overwhelming passion for the USU. So I'm like, hey, USU is so good, USU is so important, so USU deserves more. But technically speaking, USU oversees so many clubs and societies, and there's so many funding being given to clubs and society. And USU literally govern like food hub, which is so essential for a lot of international students and people living on campus, and also literally like where you hang out every single day. I just don't really fully I'm not fully able to contextualize what exactly does SRC do to have so much funding. But I think it's probably due to my lack of knowledge. But from a limited perspective and limited knowledge, I think sports and fitness and SRC shouldn't get that much funding compared to USU. So I think the USU is getting adequate funding. It's okay, but it could be better. Yeah. And I think if USU could get more funding, firstly, the volunteer team can be paid, which is really good, because that's paid opportunities on campus. And that's so good. Actually, that's so good. Yeah, because I think especially for international students, a lot of workplace and a lot of job hiring process is incredibly discriminatory, and you just like get excluded when you are non-PR. And I have international students friends who work for like the USU outlets, and that was like a more transparent job hiring process that like allow international students to working, and they really like the experience, because you just like hang out with your friends, and your friends like come and order and stuff. So I think that's such a valuable opportunity. And comparatively speaking, I think sports and fitness, because they run the fitness centers, surely there are way you can increase your membership, like make your facility better. I don't know. Like I think like a finance pro, but it's just like I think sports and fitness and SSC are getting too much money. So I think relatively this money could be redistributed to the USU. But I do understand probably there are a lot of like hidden secrets I don't know, and probably I do not understand the full like information and the insight into SSC. So I don't know. But for example, I think SSC president is overpaid, like, and I just think it's a lot of money. It's 44K. That's so much money. Yeah, because my tuition is 52K a year, and I feel like I have to work so much. I think that's overpaid. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so blunt. No way. Oh, so yes, we currently have the WeChat channel and we have the USU channel. But I think there are three problems with it. First of all, like my mom literally got confused, because you have the Sydney University Law Student channel, you have the USU channel, and then you have the University of Sydney channel, and then you have like the Supra channel. So I think there needs to be some centralization or some explanation of what exactly are the differences between different channels. And because USU has their own official channel and USU has their channel on WeChat official account, so my mom was just like, this is confusing. I don't know like how do I figure out like what are you running and stuff. So I think there needs to be a lot of centralization or more coordination between like faculties and USU to make sure that people don't get confused. I think secondarily, no offense to the people who are currently running the marketing team, but I just feel like this also linked to the V team and probably potential more paid opportunities for international students. They need to hire more international students on the marketing team, because I think the marketing right now is done in like, I can tell like the English post is kind of translated by Google Translate. It's like it's not, you're not like hashtagging the correct hashtag to increase the engagement. So I think it could be done in a more authentic way. And by doing it in an authentic way, you can also like specifically hire people who has previous expertise in using WeChat and using like Little Red Book. Because I don't know if the USU is right now is engaging in the third party or engaging with their V team when they're doing the advertisement, but I think they could definitely hire more Chinese international students who have a very good understanding of like what is popular on the app, what is the current trend. So I think this is a win-win situation for the USU and obviously for people who want to apply for these jobs. And I think there needs to be more advertisement of USU paid job opportunities on this platform, because I think right now, like the update frequency is not very like regular. I just don't know. Sometimes they post it, because like sometimes they post events that is posted on Instagram. Sometimes they don't. So I think the inconsistency should be improved. And also, just to be honest, because international students is like, I don't know about Chinese international students particularly, but isn't like around 40%. So I think that's a huge student body that you could engage with. And I think that's also really, really beneficial for the USU, because if they get reward membership again, you get more money, and that's kind of good for you. Yeah.
I think the
Yeah, so currently, because I'm the International Students Officer of SOLS, so for SOLS International Students Committee, every year we have a visa and working rights immigration workshop. So that is partnered with, I think, is an immigration lawyer from one of our sponsor, and also partner with the university, like the people who engage with International Student Center. So I think USU should mainly partner with people from like the USID, like the center that manages international student admission, and also, if potentially possible, they can cooperate with the law society, because like they have access to lawyers who specifically have knowledge about immigration rights. But I don't think this should be done by board director or USU member, because you don't want to be talking about like legal rights and stuff from a student's perspective, because I think that's not legal. Yeah. I think there are a lot of different issues. I will start with more personal issues, and then I will go on to like more political issues and more broad about the world and things they care about in the current politics. So I think firstly start with personal issues. Most of the students want to get a job, they want to get employed. That's pretty straightforward, because a lot of people come to university. Not a lot of them are trust fund babies. Not a lot of them have like a very, very strong and supportive like well-financed families. So obviously they want to make sure that they are employable and they get a degree out of the university. And I think second of all is obviously affordability of like renting and housing, and overall whether or not they can have accessible housing and like obviously affordable food. And I think that's the second most important issues for a lot of students. I think third of all, students definitely just do care about their social life. Like, I want to be popular, I want to be likable, I want to have a lot of friends, I want to have a happy university. So I think this is what students care about as well. So I think these are personal issues that is kind of transferable and universally applicable to every single student. And then I think move on to the next broader like political and world issue. So I think firstly, because Trump administration, I think a lot of students are like caring about like how the tariffs is influencing the cost of living and stuff. And I think second of all, students care about like the progress of feminism, progress of sexism, and a lot of war that is happening in the status quo right now. So I think these are broadly the issues that still on the top of the mind of students. Yeah.
Okay. In your campaign, what is the most ambitious objective or election promise, and how do you intend to achieve it?
I'm actually gonna think about it for just 30 seconds. Because to be honest, I think a lot of my promises are ambitious, but I wouldn't say that they're illusory. And I think ambition makes it an interesting campaign, and ambition makes how fighting for USU board more exciting and like driven to me. Because if it's not ambitious, there's no point in running for it. Because to be honest, I think the USU has done a lot of good job. I think the way I approach USU isn't that wow, they're so bad, they like mess it up. I think USU board directors, broadly speaking, have done a pretty good job. They're like maintaining it, going like pretty quickly, pretty smoothly. It's not like wow, completely messed up. But I think there are definitely a lot of space for improvement. I think the most ambitious election promise I give, which is I think it's to just accessibility, food, like affordability of food on campus. I think that's also one of the reasons why it has always been repeatedly spoken by every person over and over again. So I think that's the most ambitious claim I'm making. And I think the second ambitious claim I'm making is to increase more paid gig opportunities for students, because I understand that's such a nice thing to do. Nobody's going to be opposed to that, but there must be a reason why it hasn't been done in the past. So I think that's why I make it ambitious. But I also think that I'm pretty confident. I have faith in my own capacity and ability, and I know what I'm able to do. So I think that's definitely something I will be dedicated to and something I would be passionate about. Yeah.
Okay. You've said earlier that you oppose paying members of the B team, but you've just said now that you want to increase more paid gig opportunities for students. Do you think those policies conflict with each other?
Oh, I never said I oppose paying it to the V team. I say I support paying it to the V team. So
Okay, sorry about that.
it's okay. It's okay. Probably I spoke too fast. Debating habits. So basically, what I'm saying is that currently I don't know why they're unpaid. It could be that a V team themselves doesn't have strong incentive or strong preferences to being paid, but I'm unsure about that. So if I have the honor to be elected, I would like to conduct survey and actually hear and investigate into the reasons why they're currently unpaid in the status quo. And if they're unpaid for reasons like, oh, they just think this should be a volunteer opportunities and the workload isn't that much and it's fine and they just want this under CV. Okay, probably the current model is fine. But if they already have dedicated strong incentive and strong willingness to be paid and they've already advocated this for themselves throughout like the past years or something to the USU and the USU was just like ignoring it or deprioritizing it, I think that will be the tipping point when we should change the model into paid opportunities. I think my involvement in student activism, frankly speaking, is quite limited. I think it's vastly because I work, I study for time and then I work, and I think I have very, very limited time after that to engage in student activism. And secondarily, I think the amount of protests I've participated to is like very, very little. But thirdly, I do think that principally speaking, I'm quite activist compared to most of the international students on campus because I think I'm more involved in a lot of clubs and societies because of my debating experiences and law society events. So I think my activism are more involved into like helping to organize events that specifically benefit or specifically help a vulnerable group of people, like a marginalized group of people. So I think that's mainly my involvement in student activism. Yeah. And sometimes I will like repost article, but I don't think I'm really, really good at activism, and I think there are a lot of things I should learn from people.
Boycott, divest, sanction.
Oh, BDS. Okay. So firstly, I think I'm largely in support of that. So I think in principle, I'm in support of that because I think universities shouldn't fund unethical companies, and universities should not use the profit that they get from students to benefit something that is fundamentally against human rights and fundamentally against the well-being of humanity overall. And I think secondarily, but I think the movement can be done in different approaches. So I think there needs to be more diversification of the way that you channel and negotiate and communicate with university. But I obviously do understand there are a lot of constraints right now because probably university is not that willing to listen to like the student body that much. And I think that's something that USU could try to work on. And the USU can try to facilitate between SRC, USU, and the university overall. Yeah.
Okay.
Could I follow up on that?
Yeah.
What about applying those principles to the USU itself? Because that is something that you would actually have purview over as a board director.
So I think I don't know what exactly are the current companies that USU is funding right now, but I think if I have a say in deciding what companies are we able to invest in, I think I would deprioritize companies that it's considered as unethical. But I think the difficulty will then comes to what will be unethical or not, because I think the board directors they themselves have very strong different political preferences and political gains. But I think when considering this, what I'm going to be able to represent is that I'm more willing to conduct more survey to the students to actually listen to what students think it's like ethical or not. So I think I will put aside my personal political preferences and personal opinions, but I think this needs to be a more formal discussion to be had with all the board director. Yeah.
What about, say, the UN blacklist of companies operating in the occupied Palestinian territories?
Sorry, can you just
What about the UN currently has a blacklist of about 200 companies that are operating in the occupied Palestinian territories. I think that comes from a rather authoritative source. Would you be opposed to actually implementing a divestment list of those companies?
Currently, does the USU have a divestment? Currently, are the USU investing in these companies?
Well, that's something that they haven't been quite transparent about.
I don't know if USU board has the foresight into that, or the USU Senate appointed directors have the insight into that. But so far, because I am not particularly sure about like what exactly are the circumstances that UN boycotted these companies and what exactly are the complete contextual information, so I wouldn't be able to make a complete comment. But that's something that I'm open to discuss, and I think that's something that I'm open to navigate and discuss more. Yeah.
Were you involved in the 2024 encampment?
No.
Okay. What is your stance on the campus access policy, and have you been involved in any action regarding the campus access policy?
So it's the campus access policy that it's like you have to show your student ID or.
No, so the campus access policy is policy that restricts essentially the freedom of protesters.
Oh, it's
free
the
speech.
After encampment, and you have to be.
So after the encampment, people couldn't put up posters without getting permission from the university. People couldn't stage protests without getting permission and 72 hours notice from the university, and similar other restrictions that essentially hindered students' right to free speech.
So personally, I'm against these policies. I think that's bad policy from university's perspective to limit freedom of speech for students, because I am in principle supportive of the freedom of speech, but I don't understand if that's a negotiated outcome from the university, and I don't exactly know what are the university's interests behind that. But I think because when I was still a student, I didn't have the capacity to fully engage in this discourse and fully to push back against university. But I think after going through USU, I will be willing to have a more serious conversation with the university and to navigate a possibility if we are able to like potentially remove that or potentially like flex. I don't know the correct English word of it. It's like more flexible. It's like
reduce restrictions.
Reduce restrictions. Not like loosen.
Relax.
Yeah, relax. I would say it's relaxed. I think I will be interested in how we can negotiate with the university more, because I don't really know how much negotiation or so-called lobbying power USU has, because I think that's something that is constantly mentioned in election promises and people sometimes talk about, and like for example in an incorporation discourse, a lot of people talk about negotiations and stuff. And I also just think that from USU's perspective, is there any possibility for making all the sorts of negotiations more transparent? And when are we doing these negotiations, and what are exactly the interests being represented in these negotiations? So I think USU have a lot of work to do in order to improve on that aspect. Yeah. That's actually a very, very interesting discussion I had with a lot of people. So I think personally, because I'm not being affected by international students cap, so I don't think I have any personal interest and personal like invested interest in this. So I understand the government's rationale behind international students cap initially because of the cost of living crisis, but I don't think the housing prices is exclusively increased by international students. I think there are a lot of like negative gearing. I think there are a lot of more creative policies they can work around. So I think firstly, international students got from a political perspective, but like I could be wrong because I'm not Australian citizen. Like my information is not very informed. It's just like very, very limited knowledge, and obviously because I'm not like I don't have the Aussie experience, I didn't fully like know like the society and stuff. But I think there are a lot of like negative gearings and a lot of other kind of things that make housing prices very expensive. I think this is kind of like a masking action that removes attention from all the other policies that the government could be able to like reduce housing crisis. So I think it kind of looks bad faith from the very beginning. And I think second of all, I think some perspective of USU's admission to international students is very, very exploited. International students cap didn't intend to help this, but sometimes it kind of do help to alleviate some of them. But I'll go back to it later. But basically, I think a lot of international students, when they're being admitted to USU, is that they don't really know what they're signing up to because of the Taylor's College. And to be honest, I think USU is not very, very good faith when they're conducting the courses in Taylor's College. For example, I have friends from Taylor's College, which is the preparatory college from USU. It's like you're not teaching a lot of things that are useful, but it's so expensive, and you just let people who like can't speak English very competently in. That's okay. You should let them in because they are denied access of education sometimes in China, because I personally did Gaokao in China. I know how stressful and competitive it is. I love the fact that international students have the capacity, because I'm so grateful I come to Australia. Like it was life changing. Like I was so depressed in China and I get to Australia. It changed my life. But I was also fortunate because my English was like good. But if you allow a lot of people in, that's fine. Like you are giving them a second chance and they're also benefiting your economy. It's fine. But if you're not able to offer very good quality courses, that actually improve the education you're offering to them and actually make sure that they're able to understand the English content, and you just make them fail the course again and again and again, and you just get the money from it again and again and again. I think that's kind of evil. I think that's something that university shouldn't do. But I don't know how the international students cap is actually addressing that problem or not, because I don't know if the cap is just like quantifiably or qualitatively, because they say that it's going to do it qualitatively, but I think because I didn't see like the policy outcome or practical effects, so I can't make a holistic judgment about it. But I do believe that USU has a really bad problem of like exploiting international students, and then it kind of like makes their living quality worse and makes the domestic students like quality also worse, because you then cause a lot of other problems. So I think that's my stance on international students cap. I think personally, I think it doesn't influence me at all, so I'm like, I will look into it like more holistically. But I think like international students cap wouldn't solve the housing crisis. Like I just think it wouldn't solve the housing crisis. So if people are like, yeah, it's good because it solved the housing crisis, I'm like, nah. But if you wanna argue that it's good because it reduces the education quality or like avoid a lot of people being exploited, I think I might be open to hear your argument, but still I'm really skeptical about it. Yeah. I think firstly, this is probably also one of the more ambitious claim I said, and to be honest, from a very realistic perspective, I don't know how successful this is gonna be, because I think this has been this has been an ongoing debate since like ages ago, and I think it's really frustrating and very saddening to see New South Wales I don't know, I think this is true, like New South Wales is the only state that doesn't have concessionary Opal cards for international students, and I'm just like, that's so bizarre. Like, what exactly are your rationales? Like, I just don't understand. If like every single Australia state is like that, probably it's a way longer way. So probably I would deprioritize that. But I think there are a lot of justification for why this should be done. But I think the problem is that international students sometimes do, first of all, because they don't have any political bargaining chip. So I think that's the reason why, and I think university needs to understand that probably USIT is the only channel and only avenue for international students to advocate for themselves and to get concessionary benefits. I think USIT needs to be able to realize what exactly are the practical consequences of not having concessionary Opal cards. But I think the realistic thing I can do, first of all, is that I don't know much about the previous board director, and I don't know much about how much effort and dedication did they actually push forward against it. But if this is something that's overly mentioned over and over again in board meeting and meeting with university, I think if we can able to draw more attention from the university, that will be something that is very beneficial. And I think secondarily, is there any potential possibility to also cooperate with like students unions that are specifically for part-time students, because I know concessionary also doesn't apply to part-time students. And if international students don't have political bargaining chip in, like trying to advocate for that, is it going to be good if you can like cooperate together with part-time students? So I think that's probably a little bit kind of logistics of what is going to carry forward. But I think that's going to be really difficult, and I think it's really saddening and frustrating. Like I'm not happy about it because the cap for international students, it's like $50, and for a concessionary open card, it's only $27. So I think that's pretty sad, and there's a lot of money. It's pretty expensive. Yeah.
The board and the USU board and the USIT Senate actually have already come out quite publicly in support of this. So like people, even like the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, and one of the Senate, one of the USIT Senate fellows who is an MP, Jason Dutson Lee, have come out and said positive things about supporting this campaign. So with such a broad level of support, what do you think isn't actually being done at this stage, and where do you see the role of the USU is in pushing for this?
First of all, just as I previously said before, I think this is one of like the unrealistic election promises. It's like the difficulty is really, really high and the possibility is really low, but that's still something I'm willing to take on and willing to push for as one of the project when I'm on USU. Because secondarily, I also realize, and I also know that in my first year and second year, there are already a lot of not protests, there are a lot of movements, there are a lot of like advocacy around this area, and I think I do acknowledge that university has done a very, very good job into promoting that. But I think what is not done currently in the status quo is that I don't know if this is something that is actually being taken into like parliaments, or this is something that is like tangible, transferable into the actual political world, because I think I just only heard it from the level of like university, but I don't know who is the further person to carry on forward. It's like which what's the name of it? It's like which member is actually carrying forward it, like how is it being discussed? But I think this is also an area that I think probably is just that's just the unfortunate reality. But I think that's still something that I want to look at what the university has done and what USU can improve. But I think so far I don't have a very tangible plan in place because I think a lot of things has been done, and this is a thing that people say every single year, and I think that's just pretty unfortunate and sad. Yeah. I wouldn't say Grang, because Grang is like Jumpstart with Georgia, which is her logo last year. This is hard. A frog. I think the chocolate one, like a black one, because I think I can just like, because I feel like idealistically I wanna like live in rainforest and stuff. If I'm a frog, so I wanna like hide in the waters because the water is pretty muddy. So I think the black one can help myself actually conceal into the river and protect myself from the enemies and stuff. Yeah. This is interesting. I have a friend. I just call him Milk because he's like boring. For drink, I wouldn't say oat milk because we talk about how I'm lactose intolerant and I have to drink oat. I'm just going through like the options in my head to like get rid of them. Not water because it's too plain and basic.
It can be anything.
Yeah, I'm really thinking. It's really hard because there's so many good options. I think. I think matcha. Like, because
Good choice.
first of all, matcha has been like underrated in the past and it has been really popular recently. So I sometimes want myself to be like the underdog. You know what I mean? It's like, like people think I'm stupid or people think I'm not that good, but I actually perform very well and then impress everyone. Because I don't think matcha was that trendy and that popular until like quite recently. And I think there are a lot of variations and lots of different diversification you can do with matcha. Like strawberry matcha latte is nice. Matcha itself is nice. Matcha with like hojicha or stuff like that is nice. And I also think matcha is kind of like, it has a cultural aspects of it. And I'm like, like a cultured person, I would say. So I think that's why I chose matcha instead of like a cocktail or something. Yeah.
Would you have any particular kind of matcha or regular matcha? Because you mentioned strawberry matcha lattes and hojicha matcha.
I think I just like a regular matcha with not a lot of milk, and I don't like the Taste Baguette matcha, which is very sweet, but that's because Taste Baguette is not USU outlets. Yeah.
Sydney.
I don't drink matcha in Sydney at all because I think it's all overpriced. Like a matcha latte is not $7. I just make it at home because I have like the little thing, and then I went to Japan.
That's so cool.
And it's just like you have like the wooden thing, and then you have like a little cup, and you do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, because I have like a tea set at my home, because I'm Chinese, so I have like the tea set. But if I have to choose, there is a place called Adas Affair in Glebe. It's right next to where.
Yes, the Filipino one.
Yeah, it's really good. The Vietnamese one.
Is
Yeah.
it Vietnamese?
I forgot, but
I know the one you're talking about.
yeah, and it's cheap. It's $5. And it's
Yeah.
really good. And we're just like doing
They're
like
great. I
free
love that
sponsorship
place.
for them now.
Yeah, shout out.
I'm
to
not
Adas Affair,
sponsored.
It's great.
Yeah, I like that one. And it's not sweet, so it's very thick, so I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
This is also. I think this is the kind of question I prepared answers, and then I'm walking and like, actually, I don't want to say like the official one. I think there are broadly 3 reasons. First of all, I think I'm a really angry person. What that is say, I get frustrated by a lot of things, and I get angry at a lot of things, and then I think this year, instead of just being angry and like be like, oh, the food is so expensive, this is bad, oh, like blah blah blah, I want to transfer anger into actions to do things around things that I'm upset about, and if things I'm unhappy with or unsatisfied with. And also, I think I'm actually just a very, very average, everyday student, but who's really loud and who yaps a lot. And I think I am actually able to see a lot of things from a very, very observatory lens. And I think it's just gonna be good if I can transfer them into reality, because I actually made my decision to run after I started my job as the SOS International Students Officer, because I think I talk a lot to international students more, and I realized, like there are probably things I can do to help them. There are probably things I can do on the board that is tangibly effective. And also, finally, I just think that if I don't run, someone else is gonna run. And do I trust someone else? Not really. I'm pretty confident in my own ability, and I want to make sure that things are being overseen, because sometimes I'm skeptical about like, hey, where does this money go? Hey, why is this organization getting this amount of money? So I think I'm a skeptical person, and sometimes I have little conspiracy theory going on. So I would trust myself more than other people, and also because I'm unsure of other people. And sometimes I think when I was voting last year and last years, I just think my understanding of the candidate are always so limited, but I have so much stake in USU because I literally like live on campus and everything. So instead of trying to figure out who they are and vote for them, I think I would just like go for myself because I know who I am. Yeah. I think I'm the most open-minded and approachable person you would probably ever met in your life, and you can just talk to me and chat to me whenever. I'm always happy for a yeah. I think that's pretty much the reason. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Annika. That's been fantastic.
Thank you.